Hello, everybody. Welcome and thank you for coming to our first stop for our Light the Way. Thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. And a huge thank you to the Homestead for providing the space, the food, helping to plan and organize, and really help us pull this together. They've been truly amazing to work with, and you guys are really lucky to have them here in Creston. And this building is beautiful. My name is Liz Keller, and I am the founder of Golden Concierge, and I am also the thought leader behind pulling together Light the Way. And when I say thought leader, let me clarify that a little bit. I'm more like a black crow thought leader. It means I fly in with big ideas, like, hey team, I have an idea. Let's go on tour across Iowa and educate the public about dementia. And then everyone looks at me like, okay, so who's gonna do all the details in this? The spreadsheet, the schedule, the sponsors, the venues, the whole entire plan. The details have never been my spiritual gift. I'm more of a vision person, so thank you to them. They were on board. A little bit about me. My education is in social services. I'm a case manager at heart. However, I did become a realtor, and I then melted my two worlds together. Most of my special certifications are designated in the senior space in both of those worlds, making them all make sense and helping people manage those moving parts. Each person you're about to hear from is an expert in what they're speaking on today. These are the people that are in the trenches with families every day. You're not just hearing opinions tonight or big CEOs talking. You're hearing from the people that are in the trenches with families every single day. So yes, I will take credit for the idea and the name, but I would be remiss if I did not give full credit to the people that you're about to hear from tonight. Everyone that you hear from is very accessible, and if you hear something today or you need further information, please get their information and everyone's contact and they're available. Now, I want to start why this is actually a personal tour for me. I grew up in rural Iowa, and so this still feels like home because that's so much of where my relatives still are. So when I say I care about what families in small towns are going through, I really do mean it. I was very close to my grandpa. He was my rock. He was deeply involved in my sports, always buying me new equipment for whatever backyard game I was into. He was always showing up, always cheering me on. And in retirement, his hobby was training border collies to herd sheep. And I was his little shadow. He would drive me all the way from Ferguson, Iowa, so we were on the other side of the state, to pick me and my dog up, take us to Des Moines for puppy training classes, and then drive us all the way home. He loved dogs, and I love puppies, and he made that our thing. He was the kind of man who called our house every night just to check in on everybody. He was steady, he was dependable, and he was our glue. But then he got cancer, and losing him was devastating for our whole family. And what I learned too young was that something many families have to face the hard way, and that is when it comes to dementia, the caretaker often passes first. My grandpa was only 64 when he died, and my grandma lived until she was 81. My grandma had suffered a brain aneurysm when she was 40, before I was even born. And before I even understood anything, what I understood was that changed her. She was not unlovable. She was very lovable. She was not unintelligent, but she was just spacey and just really couldn't track a conversation. As a kid, I didn't really have the words for that. I just knew something felt a little bit off with her. My grandpa handled everything, the money, the farm, the structure, the practical side of everything. And when he was gone, it became painfully obvious that my grandma wasn't equipped to manage all of that alone. She was living on a farm by herself in a house that wasn't in good shape, surrounded by buildings that were falling apart, with hundreds of acres around her. She would forget to pay the bills, her lights would get turned off, her phone would get turned off. She had champagne taste, she loved to shop, and if she had cash in her pocket, she was gonna spend it on something she liked. And still, somehow in my early 20s, I felt like I was the only one saying out loud, this isn't safe. I remember my mom calling me one day and saying someone had seen my grandma on her roof in her mid to late 70s on a steep roof, patching a hole by herself. And I thought, man, you know this generation, they're not calling anyone for help. But my breaking point came when I got the call that my grandma had been found with her hand crushed and stuck between the hitch and the ball of a tractor while she was trying to hook up her trailer to her mower, or the trailer to the truck to haul her mower. She had been alone, and this is the spot actually that they found her with that situation, so I thought that was a good visual. She had been alone, yelling in pain with no one around for a long time. And by the grace of God, a farmer had pulled up to cross her land to get to his own land. And that was the moment for me that I said, someone either moves her or I'm calling Adult Protective Services. And even then, the answer wasn't to move her into a community where people could keep an eye on her, where she'd be safer, where someone could help her manage day to day. Instead, they just sold enough land to buy her a small house in town and left her living alone again, still isolated, still vulnerable, still without the level that she really needed. I often wonder what life would have been like had someone just helped, if we knew about putting a farm in the trust, if someone knew about home care, anything. And this is the hard part to say out loud, but I think it needs to be said. Sometimes families delay what's truly best for mom or dad because they're afraid of the money being spent. They tell themselves that they're protecting assets. They tell themselves that they're preserving the inheritance, but what they're sometimes really preserving is risk, loneliness, and preventable suffering. Now, I want to say this carefully because I know many of you in this room are maybe adult children or have adult children who are doing their absolute best. Most families are not malicious. Most are just overwhelmed, burned out, confused, or maybe in denial, trying to hold it all together and no idea of what step one is, and I understand that. But what we cannot have is a burned out adult children refusing to get help because they're afraid to spend mom's money on mom. Because that money was not saved so she could sit alone and unsafe with the lights shut off, trying to fix roofs and hook up trailers in her 70s. That money was meant to serve her life, her safety, her dignity, and quality of life. And what breaks my heart was my grandma was very social, so social. She bought herself a golf cart and drove that thing around town looking for people to talk to all the time. She'd stop by gardens and talk about flowers, plants, fashion, cookies, anything. She loved connection. She loved movement. She loved fun. She was an Iowa State Fair addict. She would have thrived in a community full of people with gardens to wander, shopping trips, activities, friendships, anything. She would have been living her best life. She didn't need a full locked memory unit. She just needed people around her to assure her utilities didn't get turned off or that she wasn't doing projects that she was going to kill herself. Maybe someone to make sure she was taking her meds like she was supposed to. But instead, she was found dead, alone in her home. And that stuck with me for a long time. The house was cleaned out, the land was sold, the money was split, and the language around it wasn't about her life or her loneliness or whether she'd been cared for like she deserved. The language was about her 5 kids being satisfied with their cut. And that stayed with me. Because this work is more than just placement. It's about advocacy. It's about asking hard questions. It's about helping families understand that protecting future inheritance should never come at the expense of a parent's safety, dignity, joy, and quality of life. And I want to be very clear about something right now. This tour is not about telling families that they have to burn through every dime because of this diagnosis. That's not the message. The message is we have to plan early. Don't live in denial. Don't wait until a fall, a crisis, or a hospital stay forces a decision for you. We are here to tell you things that families need to know before getting an official diagnosis. Because once you're in crisis, it gets more expensive, more emotional, and you have fewer options. And one of the hardest parts of this journey that families often hear is they don't have a clear person to call. When the questions start, what do we do next? Is this normal? And how do we keep our families safe? It can feel like there's no one place to turn, and that's why we created Light the Way. And I want to bring the real world into this room so you guys can see what we all do to help. One of the most common things families tell us is, I have no idea what to do. I should have done this years ago. I felt guilty admitting home wasn't safe anymore. It felt like I was giving up on my loved one, so I just kept them at home. And now we're way past what's safe, and this is crisis mode. Usually families come to us in crisis mode. They don't often have a huge financial runway either, and by that I mean they have less than 2 to 3 years of private reserves, and we'll talk later what that means and how that affects you. And when you start putting the numbers together, having someone come into your home and help your family out, or deciding that maybe going into a space is the right option, you realize long-term care is expensive. At that point, some of you are going to start doing the math and thinking, wait, how much is one of those Viking cruises? And honestly, you might start asking us to be your travel planners. Just put mom and dad on a back-to-back cruise with a little home care. I'm joking, but it's a real reminder that this gets expensive, and that's why planning early matters. A lot of families assume keeping a spouse or mom and dad at home as long as possible, doing it themselves, is automatically the best outcome. And sometimes it is, but not always. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is bring support into the home, and sometimes the best thing that you can do is start exploring communities sooner than you think, before a fall, before the wandering, before an emergency forces the decision. Now, these stats are only Alzheimer's specific and don't include Lewy body, vascular, or frontotemporal. But here in Iowa, more than 62,000 people are living with Alzheimer's, and 80,000 plus caregivers are providing 118 million hours of care. These are 2025 stats. Erica with the Alzheimer's Association is here. She may have more recent. And nationally, 7.2 million Americans aged 65 plus are living with Alzheimer's, and nearly 12 million people provide 19 billion hours of care a year. So if you feel tired, overwhelmed, or like the system is confusing, it's because it is, and you're not alone. And if you get to know me, you'll learn there's two sides of me. There's the compassionate, empathetic side, the one that can sit with families in the messy middle and make people feel safe enough to tell me the truth. And then there's the other side, the direct side, the justice-driven side, the one that will fight the good fight when a vulnerable person is unsafe, getting overlooked, getting stuck, or when a caretaker says, I need someone to just take the wheel because I can't do this anymore. And shockingly, those two sides don't really know the other one, because this work requires both compassion and action. But tonight, we're not here to just talk about feelings. We're here to talk about the practical stuff that families are desperate to understand. And we're gonna hit topics like all of these that I have listed, just understanding the differences. Plus, we're gonna hit Medicaid facts and myths, when you should get power of attorney, long-term care insurance, Medicare A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, when does it stop? Home health versus home care. The Alzheimer's Association is here to answer questions. Kevin and Tammy Dill are here. We're gonna hear from them on how their life has changed. And you guys are a part of Dementia Friendly Iowa. That's another, we'll let Tammy speak on Dementia Friendly Iowa, if that's okay. Okay, and I want you guys to hear this. You don't need to memorize all of the stuff you're gonna hear tonight. Our goal is to give you a starting point, the better questions to ask, and a clear path forward before a crisis hits or it makes the decision for you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring enough to show up. And thank you for being willing to having this conversation with us. At the end, we will have time for a Q&A. And if any of you guys have questions throughout, we have paper on the table. Please write them down. And then at the end, we'll answer any questions that you guys have. And with that, I'll have Amanda come to kind of talk about the difference in senior living communities.
Okay, let me start with a question. Did you know over 11 million Americans are currently providing unpaid care for someone living with dementia? Many of those caregivers are family members who suddenly find themselves navigating medical decisions, safety concerns, and eventually determining when a higher level of care may be needed. What would you do if someone you loved began forgetting familiar faces, getting lost in places they've been for years, or slowly becoming someone they no longer recognize? My name is Amanda Beener, and for the past decade, I've worked alongside seniors and their families and recently have started helping them navigate those exact moments. From understanding dementia to helping families determine when it may be time for a higher level of care. And now I want to talk about something that comes up in almost every family conversation that I have. The idea of moving to a higher level of care, independent, assisted, memory care, or skilled nursing can be a very emotional decision, and there are a lot of myths in families carry with them. The first myth, moving someone into a higher level of care means you failed them. The truth is, many families feel guilt when that conversation comes up. They'll say things like, I promised I would never move them, or I should be able to handle this. The truth is, dementia or other health conditions often reach a point where the level of care someone needs is just too simply more than one person or family member can handle. Choosing additional care is not failure. It often is one of the most loving decisions a family can make because it prioritizes safety, health, and quality of life. The second myth, moving into higher level of care means I will lose my independence. A lot of people picture a place where someone loses all independence, but good communities are designed to support independence as much as possible. They provide assistance where it is needed, medications, meals, safety, supervision, while allowing residents to make choices about their daily life. The third myth, all communities are the same. Finally, not all communities are the same. They can differ in staffing levels, training, dementia programs, and environment. That's why education, tours, and guidance can be so helpful when families are trying to determine the right fit. At the end of the day, the goal of higher level of care is not to replace family, it's to support both the individual and the people who love them. One of the biggest challenges families face is understanding the different types of care available. Many people only hear about options when they're already in a crisis situation. So I want to briefly walk through the continuum of care so families can understand what support can look like at different stages. Let's start with the first level of the continuum of care, which is independent living. This option is designed for older adults who are still very active, independent, and want benefits of a community living. Most communities still have that requirement of being 55 plus. In independent living communities, residents typically have their own apartment, condo, or cottage. The key difference is that personal care is not provided. Residents are still managing their own daily routines, medications, and personal needs. Independent living focuses more on lifestyle and convenience. Many communities provide things like maintenance-free housing, community dining, social activities, transportation, and housekeeping. The type of environment helps them stay active, connected, and engaged. Many people move into independent living because they want less responsibility of maintaining a home. Things like mowing, shoveling, or home repairs can start to feel overwhelming. Another reason is for social connection. Isolation can become very common as people age, especially if friends move or spouses pass away. Prices can vary from $2,500 to $5,000 monthly. As care needs increase, the next level many families begin to consider is home care, which allows individuals to stay in their home while receiving additional support. Home care allows individuals to remain in the comfort of their own home while receiving assistance with daily activities. This support can be flexible. Some families may start with just a few hours a week, while others may need daily or around-the-clock care. Home care focuses on non-medical support. This can include help with bathing, dressing, meal preparation, medication reminders, companionship, and light housekeeping. For many families, having someone come into their home can help reduce stress and make daily routines much easier. Home care and home health often get very confused, but they serve different purposes. Home health provides medical services in the home, such as a nursing or therapy. In many situations, family may use both of them at the same time. Families often begin considering home care when daily tasks start becoming more difficult. For example, someone may be struggling to prepare meals, manage medications, or safely move around the house. Another common sign is when family members begin feeling overwhelmed, trying to balance caregivers with work, children, and other responsibilities. Home care can be a wonderful solution in the home or even in independent living, but it's also important to recognize that as health conditions progress, especially with dementia, there may eventually be a point where higher level care is needed for safety and medical support. Prices for home care can vary from $30 to $40 an hour. The next level on the continuum of care is assisted living, which provides both housing and daily care support within a community setting. In assisted living, residents typically live in their own private or semi-private suite within a community. Staff members are available around the clock to provide support, but the focus is still on helping residents maintain as much independence as possible. These communities often provide assistance with daily tasks like bathing, dressing, medication management. They do provide meals, housekeeping, laundry services, and activity programs. Many families find that assisted living offer both safety and social connection, which can greatly improve quality of life. One of the biggest indicators that assisted living may be appropriate is when someone begins needing regular help with daily activities. Another sign is when medication management becomes difficult, especially if someone's taking multiple medications throughout the day. Safety concerns such as falls or difficulty moving around the home are also important indicators. Sometimes families also reach this point when they realize that providing care at home has become overwhelming or that the level of home care is starting to become very frequent and expensive. Pricing for assisted livings can range anywhere from $4,500 to $6,500 a month for the base rate. Cares can be an additional charge. For individuals with Alzheimer's disease or other forms of dementia, the next level of support we often discuss is memory care, which is specifically designed to support cognitive changes and safety needs. As dementia progresses, the type of care someone needs can change significantly. While assisted living can provide support for many daily needs, individuals with Alzheimer's disease or other forms of dementia often require more specialized care and supervision. That's where memory care communities come in. These memory care communities can be in the assisted living, long-term care, or in their own separate building. Memory care communities are specifically designed for individuals experiencing cognitive decline. These environments are structured to reduce confusion, provide routine, and maintain safety, especially for individuals who may wander or become disoriented. One of the most important features of memory care is the secure environment that helps protect residents who may wander while still allowing them to move freely in a safe environment. Another key difference is that staff members receive specialized training in dementia care. They learn how to respond to behaviors, communication, changes, and emotional needs that often come with Alzheimer's and other dementias. Families often begin to consider memory care when safety becomes a concern. For example, someone may start wandering outside, getting lost, leaving appliances on, or becoming confused about where they are. Behavioral changes like agitation, anxiety, or even sundowning can also make it very difficult for families to provide care at home. One thing I like to remind families is that moving to memory care is not about giving up. It's providing the level of support and safety someone truly needs for the dementia progress. Memory care can vary from $6,000 to $15,000 monthly. The final level of the continuum of care is skilled nursing, which provides the highest level of medical support outside of a hospital. Skilled nursing communities are designed for individuals who require ongoing medical care and supervision. Unlike assisted livings, these communities have licensed nurses available around the clock to manage medical needs. Residents in skilled nursing may receive services such as medication administration, wound care, medical monitoring, rehab therapies like physical, occupational, and speech. It's important to know that skilled nursing can be short-term, such as when someone's recovering from a surgery, illness, or injury, and may just need rehab before returning home. However, it can be long-term care for individuals with complex medical needs that cannot safely be managed in other settings. Families often consider skilled nursing when medical needs become more complex. For example, when someone requires daily medical treatments, ongoing monitoring, and frequent hospital care. Skilled nursing can range anywhere from $9,000 to $15,000 monthly. As we've walked through the continuum of care today, from independent living to skilled nursing, the most important takeaway is that each level exists to provide the right support for someone's needs and changes over time. While understanding the continuum of care is important, the next big question becomes the financial side of care, how these services are paid for, and what options may be available. The most common way begins through private pay, meaning all the funds are out of pocket, then they come from savings, retirement funds, or sometimes the sale of a home. On average, many individuals privately pay for 2 to 3 years before other funding options may be available. Some individuals have long-term care insurance policies that help cover care costs. These policies are designed specifically to help pay for services like home care, assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing. However, policies can vary greatly, so it's always important to review the specific coverage requirements. It is also important to note that Medicare only covers short-term skilled nursing care and not long-term care. Medicaid is another option that helps cover long-term care for individuals who meet financial eligibility requirements. Another thing that surprises many families is that not all communities accept Medicaid. Some communities are private pay only, while others may accept Medicaid either immediately or after a certain period of time. Understanding this ahead of time can help families plan and avoid difficulty decisions during a crisis. Every family's journey through aging and care looks a little different. What I hope you take away today is that you don't have to navigate these decisions alone. When families understand the different levels of care, recognize the signs that more support may be needed, and start planning before a crisis happens, the process becomes less overwhelming. With the right information, the right resources, and the right support system, families can move forward with confidence, making decisions that protect safety, dignity, and quality of life for the people that they love the most. With the right support, the right plan, aging doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can be dignified, safe, and meaningful.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. My name is Tasha, and I've worked in healthcare for nearly 20 years, with over a decade focused specifically on Medicaid and senior care navigation here in Iowa. Today is purely educational. My goal is not to overwhelm you, at least that's the goal. It's to help you understand your options before you ever need them. Because Medicaid is often misunderstood. Planning early makes a big difference. Many of us here have either cared for someone with dementia, or we're starting to see changes in someone we love. And often the questions don't start with medical care. They start with, how are we going to afford this? So dementia doesn't give families a clean start and a stop point. It unfolds. That's why planning is so important, and also why it's so easy to miss critical timing. Dementia is different from many other illnesses because it doesn't follow a straight line. Someone might be doing fairly well today, living at home, maybe just forgetting things, and then suddenly the care needs increases. Families often tell me they thought they had more time to figure things out, but dementia tends to close those planning windows quietly. If any of these sound familiar, I didn't know this could happen so fast. No one explained Medicaid to us. I'm afraid of making the wrong move. If any of those sound very familiar, you're exactly where most families are when they find us. There's no failure here, just a lack of clear guidance. I hear these exact words from families all the time. Sometimes it's a daughter who lives an hour away trying to manage everything. Sometimes it's a spouse who has suddenly gone from partner to full-time caregiver. And most people say the same thing. I wish someone had explained this sooner. Who we are here at Golden Concierge. We sit on the family side of the table. Our role is to help you understand options before decisions are forced on you. One of the hardest realities with dementia is that the ability to plan often fades before families realize it's urgent. Medicaid simplified. Medicaid is rule-based. Which program applies depends on care setting, income, assets, and timing. One of the biggest points of confusion for families is the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. Many of you know Medicare is the health insurance most people receive when they turn 65, but it can also apply to people under 65 who qualify for Social Security disability benefits. Medicare helps cover things like doctor visits, hospital stays, and medications. Medicaid, on the other hand, is a program that can help with long-term care needs when someone can no longer safely live independently and their financial resources are limited. Medicaid has very specific rules around income, assets, and care needs, which is why planning ahead can make such a big difference. Families are often told Medicaid will cover it, without being told which Medicaid and where. Medicaid rules change depending on where someone receives care. Living at home with help looks different from assisted living, which looks different from a nursing facility. That's why families sometimes hear conflicting advice, because the rules depend on the care setting. Medicaid can be incredibly helpful, but only if planned correctly. You may hear terms like QIMBY or SLIMBY. The names don't matter. The takeaway is that Medicaid may help earlier than families expect. Some people qualify for help with Medicare costs even if they are still living independently at home. For example, certain programs can help cover the monthly Medicare Part B premium or reduce out-of-pocket costs. Many families never hear about these programs because they assume Medicaid only applies to nursing homes. Advanced directives and decision-making authority often need to be addressed before estate planning. The order matters more often than people realize. One thing that surprises families is that Medicaid isn't just filling out an application. It's a process that often involves gathering financial documents, coordinating care needs, and sometimes making important legal or financial decisions. And the order of those decisions truly matter. For example, making sure someone has power of attorney or advance directives in place before cognitive decline progresses can make the process much smoother later. Most Medicaid problems don't come from bad decisions. They come from decisions made in the wrong order. Families often try to do the right thing quickly. Maybe they sell a car, transfer money to children, or sell a home to help cover care costs. But sometimes those well-intentioned decisions can actually affect Medicaid eligibility if the timing is not right. Most Medicaid problems don't come from bad decisions. They come from decisions made in the wrong order. Many couples assume they make too much money together. Medicaid treats spouses differently, but how assets are handled matters greatly. Many married couples assume that because they have savings or income together, they automatically won't qualify for Medicaid. But Medicaid actually treats the spouse who needs care and the community spouse, the one remaining at home, differently. Then the goal of the rule is to help ensure the spouse at home is not left without resources. There are lawful paths for some people, but doing this incorrectly can delay or deny Medicaid coverage. Another common misunderstanding is we make too much money to ever qualify for Medicaid. In some cases, that may be true, but in other cases, there may be additional planning steps that allow someone to still qualify. But these steps must be done correctly and within Medicaid rules. So we just talked about how being over the income limit doesn't always mean someone can't qualify for Medicaid. In some situations, a tool called an income qualified trust, sometimes called a Miller's Trust or MAIT, can be used. This type of trust allows a person's income to be directed into a specific account that Medicaid recognizes when determining eligibility. It's important to know that these trusts must follow very specific Medicaid rules. If they are set up incorrectly, it can delay or prevent eligibility. Some families assume they must go through an attorney to establish this, but in many situations, there are professionals familiar with Medicaid planning who can help coordinate this process as well. The most important thing is making sure it's done correctly and at the right time. Medicaid becomes one more thing on an already full plate. Caregivers are often managing doctor appointments, medications, behavioral changes, and family responsibilities. Trying to understand a complex program like Medicaid on top of all that can already feel overwhelming. How we help. Here at Golden Concierge, we walk with families before, during, and after Medicaid. It's not just paperwork. Families often seek guidance when they are trying to understand Medicaid options, coordinate application, or navigate care transitions. We don't need to be in crisis to ask questions, so definitely reach out for help. And for caregivers are already hard. You're doing more than you realize. Even one conversation can save months of stress and thousands of dollars. My hope today is that you leave with a little more clarity and a little less fear around this topic. Even understanding one piece of the process earlier can make a big difference for families. Thank you.
I was a former school administrator, so I'll just use my voice if you guys are okay with that. Can anyone not hear what I'm saying? No? Well, thank you guys for having us. The information in those first couple of ones are stuff that I talk about or talk with a lot, but having that resource for someone that is here locally is more powerful than you think. The Medicaid aspect, I can't tell you how many times I've gone through Medicaid processes with seniors, and I have to send them to the state, and that is not an easy thing for them to go through. So I'm Brad Gibson. I'm an independent broker here with Aaron Howard. We're going to talk to you about the government and legislation along with Medicare, two extremely non-clarifying things we're going to try and help make more clarifying for you. Aaron's got some information about long-term care that he'll start off with, and then we'll get into the Medicare conversation.
Yeah, I'm Aaron Howard. I'm a independent broker. I'm a former veteran, 101st Airborne, and I was a Desert Storm vet. When I got out of the service, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I found out that I got a gift, the gab, so I went into sales. And then when we moved to Iowa, I decided that I wanted to get into life insurance, and I had a gentleman to recruit me, and he was a veteran. And I found out that life insurance was a good thing to be into, and it helped people. But along the way, as we started to get older, I found out a lot of my relatives were having problems understanding Medicare and Medicare Part B. And thanks to Tasha, I learned that I didn't know much about how Medicaid worked. So I got into learning about long-term care. Ladies and gentlemen, long-term care is extremely expensive. I think some of you people in this room know that. However, it's our responsibility to make sure that we find a way to make it affordable. So when that day comes, or if that day comes, you'll be able to get in, have the resources, as Tasha put out, making sure that you meet the requirements and you can take care of yourself in your later years. Now, some of you all may have received things to say that long-term care can be tied to your life insurance plan, and it can be. What you want to do is to get with an independent broker, such as myself or anybody you trust, and let them break that down for you so you understand exactly what you're getting into and how it would take care of you over the years. I left some information on the table out here. As I stated, I'm out of Armdale, Iowa, so I'm easy to get hold to.
All right, so now to take the government programs of Medicare and what's going on in legislation and try and simplify it. Medicare A and B started in 1965. It was built to be catastrophic insurance. We had a lot of seniors coming off the farm. They came off of self-employment. And at a time when seniors needed health care the most, we as a country had nothing built. So in 1965, fun fact, Harry Truman was the first Medicare recipient. Does anybody know where? Raise your hand. Kansas City, Missouri was where the first Truman signature was on that Medicare card. He tried to get it through an office. It didn't work out for him while he was in office, so he ended up being the first recipient down at the Truman Library in Kansas City, Missouri. Fun fact for us in the Midwest. But Medicare, as being built catastrophic, did not cover a hospital deductible, which is $1,600, and covered 80% of doctors. So there was still some skin in the game as far as having some co-pays and co-insurances as a beneficiary. It wasn't until the 90s that Big Pharma, Part D, prescription drugs, Part D, came into play. We needed maintenance medications. We wanted to have ourselves taken care of healthier. What was some things that we could do? So we took basic medications under Part D. You then started hearing about Part C of the A, B, C, Ds, F, G, H, Ks. All it is marketing, right? A, B, C, D. They just filled in the gap because prescription drug, D for drug, C was Advantage. Well, how does it work? If you go to an Advantage plan, your Medicare, your government, pays an insurance company X amount of dollars, it's roughly $15,000, to take care of your Medicare. So essentially, instead of our government writing checks to doctors, writing checks to facilities, they've now turned that over to an insurance company. What you then have to do is play by those insurance company rules. Those insurance companies, they take that $15,000 and they spread it out over buckets. Bucket A, they have to cover. It's a Medicare. They've got a hospital they got to cover. However, they're going to have co-pays, and after certain days, you'll have a higher cost or a lower cost based off their plan design. Bucket B is your doctors. They have to cover it 80%. It's a government contract with Medicare. However, you will have co-pays for specialists. You'll have networks of doctors that they have to agree to join that insurance company. You'll have a prescription drug bucket, which is called a formulary. Your prescription drugs are in 5 tiers. Tier 1 and Tier 2 are your maintenance medications. Tier 3, I call it TV. Tier 3, TV. If you see it on TV, its MSRP is usually over $1,000, and they want to charge you 25% of it just for you to take it. They've got the cool jingles and the cool marketing going on. Your tier 4s and 5s are usually higher costs as well, but those are specialty medications. So if you have any conditions that require a specialty drug, you're going to pay that tier 4, tier 5 price with it. Insurance companies have to cover 2 medications per category. No more. They can't cover less, or they wouldn't have their Part D plan or their contract. That's important to know because as I talk about one of these future slides, we're going to see how those formularies are changing a little bit as you have those conversations with your doctors. So the difference in your Medicare choices, you stay on original Medicare and you go to a Medicare supplement plan, also known as Medigap plan. It covers in those gaps of the 20% and the hospital copay. You pay a monthly premium every month, starting at $100 to $150, every year increasing. I've seen them as high as $500. But you don't have to deal with networks. You don't have to deal with copays. As long as the doctor accepts Medicare, they take your original Medicare and they take your supplement. Or you jump over to a Medicare Advantage. A lot of times there's zero copay. They're paid by the government. That's how they're zero. But you would pay networks, or you'd pay the copays of your doctors, and you have to stay within those networks. So if your doctor chooses to leave that network, you then either have to change doctors or try and find a different plan that doctor does take. That is getting to be a scenario that we are trying to navigate here after I talk about my legislation slide. So if you think it's been confusing so far, wait till I get to the legislation coming up. But it's definitely been a scenario where doctors and insurance companies are trying to come to some resolutions with how the system goes. Go ahead and turn the page here. Under original Medicare, that Medigap Medicare supplement side, you can join a Medicare supplement any time of the year. You can join it at 70, 75, 80. I know some of you may have heard I can't join it later in life. You can, but you have to go through underwriting if you don't do it when you're first 65. So they will ask you a series of questions, and based off the answers to those questions, they can increase your premium or not accept you at all. The Medicare Advantage side, they have to take you. They're covering original Medicare, so there is no underwriting questions. If you go to Advantage, most people are saying, well, I'll just go to Advantage when I turn 65. I'll wait till something goes wrong, and then I'll jump over to the supplement side, and I'll pay my premium every month, and they'll just pay the rest of the bill. They know that game. They know what's going on. Obviously, something's going to go into the underwriting questions where you probably won't be able to do that scenario. But so why I say that is because if you go the Advantage side, you will have to play in the Advantage side of the game as long as your plan is still around. Some of the Advantage plans are now exiting the market. There's been a couple in this area last year that are no longer here. If your plan exits from a Medicare Advantage, you do have guaranteed issue to go back over to supplement, original Medicare side, but they will have an increased premium when you get there. Just be aware of that. So there's some loopholes that we work with to try and help get you back to the other side if we can. If it doesn't qualify, then you'll have to find another Advantage plan that suits you for that area. Some things you need to make sure that you're considering on the two sides. Make sure you consider the costs. On the Medicare supplement side, you will pay your monthly fee, roughly $300 per month, take that on average, times 12, $3,600 a year. Whether you use the insurance or not, doesn't matter. You pay the premium, you stay in the plan. Medicare Advantage, you pay zero premium on 75% of them, but you would pay copays as you go along. Zero at your primary care, $35 at your specialist, $300 a day at your hospital. 97% of Medicare Advantage beneficiaries don't pay more than $3,000 in copays, but you got to deal with the insurance companies and their networks and their rules when you go to that side. Hold on one second. Your providers, especially in the rural areas, you got to make sure all your providers are in those networks. Again, they can change year in and year out. And just make sure if you have any special needs options, As we talked about with Medicaid, there are plans that work with Medicaid and Medicare. They call them dual eligible. The two go together like a Venn diagram. You have a dual special needs plan. One of the new special needs plans we're hearing a lot about now are chronic condition plans. And there's a reason for that. The insurance companies are graded through their star ratings. Their star ratings are based off of health outcomes, what's a big part of health outcomes? Chronic conditions today. We're hearing a lot about diabetes, heart and cardiovascular, pulmonary. All of those are becoming more prevalent in today's system to where the insurance companies are building plans. When I talked about that row of buckets with Advantage, they're building a whole new bucket that says this person has a chronic special need. They have a Medicaid, and they fill some of those funds to focus on that special need plan. Okay, so those are the two special needs plans that you need to make sure you're aware of. Go ahead and change the slide. So, what's going in Washington that you kind of need to be aware of? Because what's going to change when it comes to October and you get all the TV commercials and the phone calls that shouldn't happen? The first is the Reconciliation Act, the big, beautiful bill. You keep hearing about the $500 billion in Medicare cuts. Where they're making those cuts mainly is from provider payments, restructuring how those payments are to providers. The Medicare Savings Program, which is Medicaid. Essentially in 2020, when COVID happened, anyone that had any level of Medicaid that you heard her talk about those different levels, each level gave a different benefit value to the member. Well, when COVID happened, they all got full benefits. So now that we're past COVID, 2024, every beneficiary had to go through a redetermination process. They had to resubmit their bills, resubmit their incomes, find out what level of Medicaid they were on, and then that would be the level of help they would get going forward. Rightfully so, we needed to adjust the system back to where it was, but that's where a lot of the $500 billion comes from, some of those programs. You also have the immigrant eligibility, which you keep hearing about. Essentially, to be on Medicare as an immigrant, you got to be 5 years legal in the United States with a green card. They're making sure that no one's in the system that wasn't through those requirements. Drug price negotiations, I'll talk about in the last one, and then the enrollment process for the MSP, the Medicare Savings Program. Next is the technology. That has a lot to deal with transparency. Our colleague, our home office in Florida, was actually on a guest panel with Dr. Oz. I was in a room with him back in October. I was back in DC 2 weeks ago trying to talk to legislators about this system. So I'll tell you where their thought process is in Medicare on the Hill. They're trying to cut back on the fraud, waste, and abuse. And here's one example that I saw firsthand 2 weeks ago. I saw a slide of a hospital system that had 7 different carriers, including themselves. This particular hospital system, not in Iowa, thankfully, was in Colorado, had its own Medicare Advantage plan. A heart ablation was the procedure that they had the diagram for. This hospital charged themselves $44,000 for a heart ablation. They charged the 6 other carriers on the screen different price amounts up to $187,000 for the same heart ablation, 7 different prices. So a lot of what the conversation on the Hill is where is the fraud, waste, and abuse? Where can things happen? Obviously, that conversation in DC is a lot of circles as well too. But at least their focus is how do we cut back on some of that fraud, waste, and abuse. One way they're doing that is through the technology. It's also the Transparency Act, is by having conversations about plan procedures being more uniform. The other thing is everyone having a health portal. So every American under 65, over 65, instead of going to your primary care doctor portal, your hospital doctor portal, your specialist doctor portal, and then when you leave there, oh wait, I've got to download it all and transfer it. The government is trying to build a site. They're currently doing it. They're having conversations with private businesses on how to do this, who are large-scale retailers doing online shopping who know how to do this. The big holdup right now is this going to be a government site or a private site? 50-50 on America, right? I think that'll come in the next 3 to 4 years. I actually look forward to it as getting life insurance later on in life. You guys have probably been surprised with, hey, you can't get this long-term care or this life policy because this was said about you 18 years ago. Huh? They never told me about that. So hopefully that'll help with that correction there. The next, Make America Healthy Again. Those chronic condition plans, those special buckets. Government no longer wants to pay insurance companies just for having the contract. From 2005 through 2025, which is how the Advantage system is intact today, essentially, when you signed on to an Advantage plan, that check was stroked to the insurance company. They spread it out in the buckets, and you picked the plan and dealt with it throughout the year. Well, government no longer wants to write that check without having health outcomes. You have to show how you're improving the life of this member on your plan. That's a great concept, right? Like, we don't want them just to collect checks. They should be proving the health outcomes. The way they do that is through those special needs plans and those star ratings. So when I first got into this 10 years ago, I was a former school administrator, came over the system, star ratings were talked about. They weren't really a big issue. Most plans were between 3 and 4 stars. In 2025, there was 74 five-star plans in the country for these grades. We'll call them grades because I was an educator. In 2025, there was 7 five-star plans. What does that tell you about a business if you want to cut costs as a government? Oh, we grade them harder, we pay them less, right? So the carriers are going through some strict grading changes. The rubric has changed. You're seeing changes in your plan designs today. That formulary I talked to you about where they only had to cover 2, they're now covering those 2. They used to cover about 5 just because they could, but with the Inflation Reduction Act hitting them last year, they're only covering 2, and in order to get approved for that 3rd or 4th drug, if you need it on that formulary, you have to go through what's called formulary exception. Your doctor has to prove why you need the medication. We tried 1 and 2, they didn't work. 3 didn't work either, we're on 4, whatever the case may be. So you're now probably starting to see as you shop those meds, they may or may not hit all on the first try. You've got to go through formulary exceptions. The Inflation Reduction Act was probably the biggest change. It's actually been around since 2022. It is the reason why insulins went to $35 and vaccines went to no cost. We didn't talk about it much. We liked that back in 2023, but it was kind of behind the scenes. It wasn't until last year when, as a beneficiary, a Medicare beneficiary, you used to pay up to $8,000 for your meds, which was called the donut hole. Remember that? The coverage gap? Well, the Inflation Reduction Act pushed that down to $2,000. That's a good thing for seniors. However, what happened was they said, oh, insurance companies, you pay the difference. And now the carriers had to design plans that they might absorb $6,000. And anyone that was paying $2,000, when the jingle came on TV, I'm already at my max. Hey, doc, what about that Ozempic or Jardiance? Those sound like fun. Let's try that. You're already paying your $2,000, right? So there was some extra things that started happening in the system, as well as the person that was at $1,700 by then, hey, what's another $300, $400? So we've seen the drug utilization go up since this happened. Plan designs are changing their formularies because of this. It doesn't mean you won't be able to get the medication. It means you have to go through formulary exception. All right. And, yep, I didn't know which slides I cut out.
I got one other thing to go over before we go.
Yeah.
Do we have any veterans in here? Veterans? We got veterans? I want to make sure that you understand something, okay? Brad and I both have been drilled on understanding the benefits that go for the veterans. Now, we help everybody. But for the veterans, the ones that retired, and you get TRICARE. That's what you get for the rest of your life to help you to take care of your health care. They go along with your Medicare. If you got hurt, come back, wherever the case may be, you get TRICARE for life for the retirees. You get TRICARE for those that got hurt. Your family member qualifies for TRICARE, okay? Now, for those of us that got disability, we go to the VA, we get VA benefits. If you're over 80%, you get CHAMP VA for your spouse, not for you. I want to make sure I put this out to everybody. I go to a lot of these centers. A lot of veterans will tell me, well, I'm not going to get it. I'll give it to somebody else. That's not how it works. If you don't take that benefit that you earned, the government cuts it. They don't give it to somebody else. So it's never too late. If you want to talk to me, I'll talk to you one-on-one. You want, we can bring Brad in if we need to. But please, please utilize those benefits that the government, that you earned. We want to make sure you get it for you and your family. That's it.
Thank you, guys.
Hi, I'm back. Okay, so next we're going to talk about advanced directives because it's really, really important. So we just spent some time talking about Medicaid planning and how important it is to understand the rules before a crisis happens. Another piece of planning that often gets overlooked, but is just as important, is who is legally able to make a decision if you cannot. This is where advanced directives comes in. These documents allow you to choose someone you trust to step in and help with medical or financial decisions if you ever become unable to make those decisions yourself. We'll talk about what advanced directives are, how they differ from guardianship and conservatorship, and why completing them early can protect both you and your family. A situation I see often looks like this. Mom is hospitalized suddenly. The doctors begin asking questions about treatment decisions, medications, or next steps. The daughter is standing right there and says, I'm her daughter, I can help. But the hospital asks a very important question. Do you have legal authority? Many families are surprised to learn that relationships alone are not enough. Hospitals, banks, and government agencies require legal documentation, not just verbal permission. Advanced directives are planning tools. They allow you to decide ahead of time who you trust to step in if you cannot make decisions yourself. One important clarification, these are not the same as a will. A will takes effect after someone passes away. Advanced directives help while you are still living, if you become ill or unable to communicate your wishes. So think of these three documents: healthcare power of attorney, living will, healthcare directive, advanced power of attorney. Healthcare power of attorney allows someone to speak with doctors and make medical decisions. A living will explains your wishes about life-sustaining treatment. And a financial power of attorney allows someone to manage accounts, pay bills, and sometimes complete things like Medicaid paperwork. When these three documents work together, families can respond quickly if something unexpected happens. Without these documents, families may have to go through a court process just to gain authority to help. That process can involve attorneys, court hearings, and a month of delay. Advanced directives keeps decisions within the family instead of the court system. This is one of the biggest surprises for families. Many people assume that a spouse automatically has authority over finances or medical decisions, but banks and hospitals require legal documentation. Even adult children cannot automatically access accounts or make decisions without proper documents. Guardianship happens after someone has already lost decision-making capacity. The court determines that the individual can no longer make safe decisions and appoint someone to act on their behalf. This removes certain legal rights from the individual and places oversight with the court. Conservatorship is similar to guardianship but focuses on financial authority. Without a financial power of attorney, families may need to pursue conservatorship just to access bank accounts or pay bills. Both guardianship and conservatorship involve court oversight and legal processes. When families apply for Medicaid, someone must gather financial records, sign documents, and communicate with the state. Without a financial power of attorney, families may have to pursue emergency guardianship just to complete an application. So this real-world example, mom has dementia, is hospitalized, there's no power of attorney, bills unpaid, Medicaid stalled, family must pursue guardianship. This situation happens more often than people expect. Families assume they can step in and help, but they quickly learn that legal authority is required. These delays can affect healthcare decisions and financial stability. The best time to complete these documents is before they are needed. Once someone loses decision-making capacity, these options may no longer be available. Over the years, there are several common situations where families run into problems. Many people wait until a crisis happens. Sometimes the person chosen is not realistically able to serve. Other times, families complete the document, but never tell the person they selected. Another common issue is simply not knowing where the document is stored. And finally, some families assume documents created many years ago still work perfectly. The good news is that all of these situations are preventable with a little planning ahead. Some families work with attorneys for customized estate planning. Others work with organizations that help prepare these standard documents. The most important thing is that they are completed correctly and before a crisis occurs. Planning ahead with these documents isn't about expecting something bad to happen. It's about making sure that if something does happen, the people you love are not left trying to figure everything out during a stressful moment. And that's it.
Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Larson. I work for St. Croix Hospice. Excellent speaker so far. This has been great. I think I'm your last. Is that correct? Nope. One more. Okay. Good. Okay. So I have the honor and privilege to talk a little bit about hospice. Very scary word. It can bring a lot of different emotions to everyone. That's associated in every facet of life. My objectives today, which are up on the screen, mainly to normalize the word hospice, right? And I think you've heard that hopefully over the last decade or so. The reason I think I was invited on this dementia tour is dementia is, if it doesn't surprise you, it's the #1 leading cause for it's the #1 admission diagnosis for those on hospice. So a lot of you might think it's cancer. It's not. It's dementia in all forms. So my background's in nursing. I joined St. Croix a year ago. Had worked with. I'm already scaring people. Sorry, guys. I was on the outside as a director of nursing. Assisting with hospice services, but really the decision to come to St. Croix was because I've had 4 loved ones that died without hospice, and I don't want anyone to have to go through that. There was a decline, the need was there, reluctant family members, and I've heard it so often, I wish we would have had hospice services sooner, or hospice services at all. So objectives outlined here: provide a brief history of hospice, identify myths about hospice and explain their truths, discuss the benefits of hospice, describe the interdisciplinary hospice team and their roles, review the different levels of hospice care, explore covered hospice services, identify when it is a right time for hospice, and we can discuss what makes St. Croix different. You matter because of who you are, and you matter to the last moment of your life. We will do all we can, not only to help you die peacefully, but also to live until you die. It's just a nice quote I found. A brief history. 1967, if you didn't know this, contemporary hospice movement was founded. Following that, 1974, the first hospice in the United States opened. So hospice is still somewhat new, however, it's ever evolving. A lot of times we think hospice is, our last days of life, and now that's changed significantly. We want, utilization of hospice services when we see a decline. We want to normalize, the language around that, and so we can utilize, the benefits that we have through Medicare and Medicaid. So in 1983, the hospice Medicare benefit enacted. In 1988, the Community Health Accreditation Program, hospice accreditation. 2004, more than 1 million Americans are served by the nation's hospices. We're going to skip that. We're going to jump into what hospice is and what it's not. Okay, so hospice is not just for people with cancer. We talked about that. It's not only for your last few days of life. It's not a place you go to die, and it's not giving up on care. What hospice is comfort-focused care at home or in a facility. So wherever you call home, hospice will go and provide help. It is support for months, not just days, and it is available wherever you live. Hospice is for physical, emotional, and spiritual care. So a lot of times, it's probably in here. A lot of times people think hospice is just for that patient, right? That's a big reason we're there, right? But it's also for family members, caregivers, any support, friends. We have a multidisciplinary team, which is a nurse, an aide, a chaplain, a social worker, music, massage therapy, volunteer support, but a lot of that is given to the family members, to those loved ones, those conversations about education, the signs and symptoms, the advanced care planning, the funeral home arrangements, just being there to talk, right? That companionship that goes not only for that patient, but it can go for their neighbor, anyone who's close to that patient that's on our services. So myth number one, hospice is a place. We know that is not true. Hospice is not any physical location, but it's a type of care. Services are provided wherever that patient calls home. So, like an assisted living, in a nursing home, hospice house, or even a non-traditional setting. I know we've helped individuals at shelters before. So, myth number two, hospice means giving up. This is what my family kind of encountered. I think it's natural for everyone to want to keep living, right? It's natural for me to want, my mom to continue getting therapy and getting stronger and healthier, right? And it's shifting the focus and the mindset of, what makes sense for mom or for dad or for brother or sister, whoever it is, right? Do we want, what's that look like? What's that looked like in the last 6 months? Mom or dad or whoever it is has gone to the hospital 6 times, has fallen 10 times, has had 12 infections, follow-ups after follow-ups, right? So is this what we want to keep pursuing, right? I think that's the conversation that's necessary, however, very hard. I understand that. So the truth is hospice focuses on comfort and not curing the illness. It helps manage symptoms, pain, and emotional needs. And it studies how hospice can even extend life. And there's studies that show how it can extend life expectancy. So 29 days, that is the stat out there. If you have two people with identical diagnoses, put them side by side, and one has hospice and the other doesn't. On average, that individual in hospice will live 29 days longer. Myth number 3, hospice is only for cancer patients. Hospice serves patients with many life-limiting illnesses. Conditions include heart failure, stroke, Alzheimer's disease, lung disease, and kidney failure. less than 25% of hospice patients have a terminal cancer diagnosis. So back to my point of that misconception. Myth number 4, hospice is only for the last days of life. The truth here is hospice is for individuals with a life expectancy of 6 months or less. 6 months or less, that, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball, right? We don't know what 6 months or less is. That's all dictated by a picture that's painted, right? By associated diagnoses that you have, but also, what the decline has been like, for that individual, and so on and so forth. I'll talk more about that later if you have questions. So to that point, people can remain on hospice for over a year at times, right? You can graduate off hospice. We always applaud that, we want people to get better. Graduate, you can come back onto hospice, just as long as you're being cared for and having that quality of life. Families often say they wish they would have chose hospice sooner. And myth number 5, hospice is just hand-holding at bedside. I think that's maybe what the media portrays. Hospice provides comprehensive medical, emotional, and spiritual care. A team of professionals, including that nurse, social worker, chaplain, aides, the music and massage therapists, and that support for their families, like I spoke about. So our focus is on enhancing quality of life. Last myth that we'll cover is hospice care is expensive. I don't know if that's so much of a myth anymore, but I put it in here. It's covered by Medicare, Medicaid, commercial insurance. We've even helped people out that, are uninsured, right? We will, it's our duty to take care of people in any capacity, no matter their financial situation. We kind of talked about this. Hospice means death is near. That is untrue. Okay. So the benefits of hospice, you're getting that medical care, obviously. You get a little bit more freedom to choose what your life looks like and what's, you don't, no longer have to do all the rigmarole of the medical system, right? Preventing hospitalizations, rehospitalizations, 24/7 availability when you're on hospice. Just know that, any hospice agency has that ability to help out 24/7. St. Croix Hospice, I know we have a team of on-call nurses, that's their sole job is to work overnights and be present and awake, so they can to help those individuals throughout the evening hours. Let's go. Kind of dragging on here. So real quick, I know there's maybe some confusion at times what hospice, how that differs from palliative care. I have some booklets up on the table over there. It's called the Hospice Family Guide. And in here is a lot of good stuff. Some of the stuff I covered up here today, but it kind of breaks down the differences between hospice, palliative, and home care. The biggest difference really is if you're on palliative care, you can continue curative treatment. So the same philosophy is we're focused on comfort and quality of life. Hospice will also help with family members, obviously, where your palliative programs won't do that. Hospice, you're gonna get a lot more visits than a palliative program. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Palliative is a good stepping stone to that hospice decision. You know, that's probably approaching that conversation. However, I always suggest, you know, because of the benefits of hospice, if we're at a stage of no longer curative mindset, to you know, take what the benefits of hospice has to offer, because it's going to be a lot more visits, a lot more eyes and ears, and we're able to help with family member support as well. Let's see. How much time do I have here? Holy cow. I think I'm about done. Okay. We kind of went over that. I'm not an educator, if you can't tell. Oh my gosh. So the hospice team, real quick, you can read that up there for yourselves. But like I said, it's a registered nurse. At times it can be an LPN as well. But that registered nurse is kind of the case manager of the team. The hospice aide, which is a CNA, will assist with, like it says up here, bathing, dressing, grooming. You know, they can help with range of motion and restorative programs to ensure someone wants to keep walking, right, and not lose that mobility. We're there to assist with those needs as well. So chaplains, I like the word spiritual counselor as well. Non-denominational, they help navigate feelings such as fear, grief, forgiveness, and anger. They work very closely and in unison with our social workers. Social workers help, you know, with those emotional and physical needs, but a lot of their time is spent with the family members, obviously, especially those with dementia. So funeral home arrangements and planning, advanced care planning decisions, you know, making sure, you know, living wills, POAs, all that stuff sorted out. We have one of our social workers here. I'm gonna let you know she's here in case you want to chat with her. She's a wealth of knowledge. Music therapy. There's a lot of misconceptions about music therapy, massage therapy. For instance, a massage therapist, they're not going to get anyone on a table and provide deep tissue massage. It can be as simple as light touch to your hands, right, to the back. It might not be for everyone, and what's unique about all our services is it's pick or choose, right? Does this disciplinary team member make sense for whoever this patient is? You know, would they benefit from music therapy or massage therapy or not? You don't have to have them, right? But I always suggest try them once. You know, they're good for companionship. Try them once. If you don't like them, fire them, right? That's where I always go, because you're going to end up, 9 times out of 10, you're going to love having music and massage therapy. So music and massage, they also help with pain management, anxiety. It's a really, really special thing that St. Croix offers. Volunteer support, you know, they can help with bereavement, companionship, pet therapy, veteran to veteran, and virtual support. I'm going to wrap this up here. A lot of people don't know that the hospice benefit has bereavement support, which can be to not only direct family members, but friends, family, any connection, caregivers in a community. If there's any grief, any loss, any need for bereavement, you know, St. Croix will help with that. And that is, for the patient and direct family members, it's a 13-month benefit. So that following when someone dies, and it's all individualized. So it's not a one-size-fit-all, you know, bereavement visit. Can be via phone, in person, but just know it's there 13 months after. Real quick, last thing I think, when it is time for hospice. So this little list here, I like to say the more you have checked on a list for your loved one, let's start having the conversation, right? Let's start normalizing it a little bit more and opening it up and not putting it in a box. So increased hospitalizations or ER visits, progressive weight loss, change in comprehension, need for more assistance. There's a decline in walking and dressing and bathing, increased incontinence, increased in swelling, weakness or shortness of breath, falls, withdrawal from family and friends, decreased appetite, taking 9 or more daily medications, an increased number of infections or wounds. Okay, so I have a lot of good information up here. I hope it's all gone, so you guys have your resources for when it comes time to talk about hospice. But that's all I got. So thank you, and I'm sorry I had to talk about the not so friendly topic of hospice. But now you have all that information. Do with it as you will. So thank you.
I hope everyone's hanging in there okay for attention. I know you've had a lot of presentations tonight, but I love to talk to people about prevention, and I love to talk about brain health. So my name is Erica Eichrin, and I am the program manager for the Iowa chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, which means that I get to go out and speak with communities like this around a lot of different topics that we have, but specifically going to focus tonight on brain health, which I think it's wonderful when we're talking in the space of Alzheimer's dementia. A lot of times we hear the negative aspects of it, right? But what if you knew that there are certain things that you could do on a daily basis that would lower your risk of getting dementia or Alzheimer's in the future? So I know you've seen some of these stats already today, and this is the most negative slide I feel like I have to share with people around just the numbers and data, which Liz already shared with you, so I'm going to skip ahead. But what I do want to share that I think is really positive is when you look here, it says that up to I'm going to try to read faster before it blinks out again. Okay. Up to 4 in 5 Americans say that if there was a treatment or something out there to help with Alzheimer's, dementia, et cetera, that they would be for it. They would be wanting a treatment or, and we're getting closer to that. So one thing I will tell you is, as it pertains to Alzheimer's specifically, in the last 2 years, the reason we're talking more about early detection and we're talking about brain health a lot more is that if we can detect Alzheimer's specifically and catch it in the early stage, there are medications out there that you can receive through infusion that are actually changing the progression of the disease because they're removing those plaques and tangles from the brain and keeping people at that early stage for longer periods of time. So we're not yet to a cure. We're getting closer in that way, and we're hoping that what works for Alzheimer's will eventually be able to be used or work for other forms of dementia as well. But what I do like showing you here too is that 92% of Americans would want a medication to slow the progression of Alzheimer's or another dementia when it is available. But the focus today is why are we here and what do we do for our communities? So one thing I want people to take away, if they don't take away anything else, is raise your hand if you're aware that we have a 24/7 helpline at the Alzheimer's Association. 2 people. All right, so here's your golden nugget. We have a table over there, and I hope you stop before you leave today and get a magnet, because we have a 24/7 helpline for any form of dementia that you can call and ask any memory-related question that you have. You can ask for a care consultation if you're currently a caregiver and you're stuck, you don't know what to do, you need local resources, help, et cetera. Our master level clinicians that answer the phone are very proud to say that they spend at least an hour and a half on average on the phone with people. So they're the one call center out there that's not trying to get you off the phone because they truly want to help you understand the disease and all of your resources, help you understand why is my loved one pacing the hall at 2 a.m. I've tried everything I can think of, nothing's working, you call this number. So please take one of those magnets with you today. So we're here for 3 reasons. 1, we do want to help find a cure for the disease, so we focus on research and treatments and getting closer to a cure. We want to educate people on lowering their risk of getting the disease because there are modifiable things you can do, and that's what I'm going to focus on in a moment. And then we're here to provide care and support for those that are impacted by the disease. So if you feel comfortable, show of hands of how many of you have a personal connection to a form of dementia, as in friend, family member, close person you know has had the disease. So about half of you or more, right? And so we are here to help provide that care and support. We have about 60 support groups within the state of Iowa. And if you don't have one near you, we have a couple of virtual ones where you can join online if you can't attend in person. So there's something out there to make sure that everyone's feeling cared for and feeling supported. So I mentioned that we're the Alzheimer's Association, but our actual full name is we're Alzheimer's disease and other related dementias is actually the full name. So we do support those with Alzheimer's, those with vascular dementia, Lewy bodies disease, frontal temporal, Huntington's disease, and sometimes people can have mixed dementia where it can be more than one cause or different causes of the disease. So I talked a little bit about the treatments that are out there, and there are a lot of great ones, medical and non-medical, but work with your doctor on that. And so one thing that I think is really worth making note of is that, you know, we all deserve a life with the healthiest brain possible. How many of you think it's too late to make a positive change when it comes to your health or especially your brain health? Anyone? Hopefully no. Okay. There are things that you can do to take charge of your brain health. So when we think about the risks to our brain health, no matter what age we are, Alzheimer's disease and other dementias is a result of a lot of factors. So when we talk about non-modifiable factors, there's things we can't change. A lot of us want to. I could walk around and tell everyone I'm 29, but after a while, you're not going to believe that, right? So I don't have control over my age or the fact that I'm getting older, right? I don't have control over my genetics, and I don't have control over my family history. I don't have control over whether my mom had diabetes or my dad had Parkinson's, right? But there are modifiable things that I can focus on, that if I focus on the 10 healthy habits I'm going to talk about today, I can keep my risk of dementia down by 45%. That's pretty significant, don't you think? So that's what I'm really going to focus on today. So I'm going to hit on these 10 healthy habits for your brain. We're going to talk about the importance of protecting our head, exercise, challenging our brain, knowing our numbers, sleeping well, all of those things. So the couple big things. We want to make sure that we know our numbers. So hopefully everyone is going to the doctor on an annual basis. You're getting a physical. Only a few of you, I think, are at that Medicare age anyway where you need the wellness check. But when you get to that age of 65, make sure you're going for that Medicare wellness check. And make sure that your doctor is giving you a mini cognitive assessment. If they're not offering it, you can ask for it. And even if you're not having memory concerns, it's okay to have it in your chart as just kind of a benchmark and say, okay, when I get it next year, let's see how I compare. Did my cognition slip a little bit? Did it get better? How did I do today? So we want to, when we go to that physical, we want to know our numbers. We want to know our blood pressure, our A1C, our blood sugar. We want to know all of those numbers. And if they're not where the doctor wants them to be, we need to work on getting them where they need to be. That keeps our risk down. The importance of physical activity. We want to get in that physical activity to raise our heart rate and increase our blood flow to our brain and body. And we also want to eat right. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the recommendations there in a moment. We also want to work on maintaining a healthy weight. And we want to get good quality sleep. So here's the interesting thing about sleep. It's not always about the quantity of it, it's the quality of it as well. So we want to focus on that 7 to 8 hours a night, right? But we want to make sure we're getting that deep sleep, because it's when we get that deep sleep that we're able to flush out all those toxins that can formulate in our brain. And that's really where it's key to make sure we're getting that good quality sleep. Sometimes better said, better, not as easy as you think it is, but that's where we want to focus. And obviously the importance of being smoke-free. So they say if you're currently a smoker, you stop tomorrow, your risk of you go back to the risk of a non-smoker if you're able to quit even tomorrow. So back to that point of it's never too late to make some good changes. And then protect your head. If you're someone who does roller derby like these two ladies, make sure you're wearing a helmet. okay? But we want to make sure that we're preventing head injuries as much as possible. And then stay in school. So if I told all of you that you wouldn't get dementia if you went and got your PhD tomorrow, how many of you would sign up to get another college degree? Probably not, right? No, and that's not what it means. So we want to make sure that we're always challenging our brain to learn new things. Even if we have some mild cognitive impairment, we can still try to learn a new skill, a new recipe, try to get somewhere without using our GPS and rely on our own sense of direction. Anything that's helping us to make new connections and take on new memories and new information is so good for our brain. So that's what we really mean when we say, stay in school and challenge your brain to learn new things. So currently, why do we talk about just these 10? So it's really because when the science comes out in the research, it says that these risk factors have the strongest levels of evidence. There are other things that have a little evidence out there, and we currently have about 80 clinical trials going on throughout the Alzheimer's Association on various things that we're always researching. But these are the top 10 that I bring up today, that they are the highest risk to our brain, that are those modifiable factors that we really can have control over. Other things that we're starting to learn a lot more about is the importance of treating any hearing loss we might be having, vision problems we're experiencing, trying to keep our stress levels lower. And we are hearing a little bit about air pollution as well and the effects of the body, but they're not up there in that top 10. So one thing that we recently did at the association is we did what's called a US pointer study. So for over a 2-year period, we did a large-scale randomized controlled trial within the United States to evaluate whether addressing these lifestyle factors at the same time, so diet, exercise, cognitive stimulation, and heart health, if they would protect people's cognitive function or help to lower their risk of that cognitive decline. So here's what they found out after a 2-year study. All of the participants either followed a self-guided program or they had more of a structured program. And in that 2-year period, both of those groups had improvements in their cognitive abilities. So that's where, again, it's not too late to make those positive choices or changes. And here's what they found out is that the people that had the structured activity made a little bit more improvement than those that didn't. But what they recommended is we came out with this brain health recipe, so very specific, saying that if you were able to get 30 to 35 minutes of moderate to intense aerobic activity 4 times a week, plus getting in some strength training or flexibility exercises twice a week, that can help your cognition from a physical activity perspective. So going for a walk, doing some stretching, doing yoga, anything that can help in that area of getting your heart rate up and helping with your strength and flexibility. And then health monitoring, like I said before, getting those regular check-ins with your doctor to make sure that your blood pressure, your weight, your lab results are all where they need to be. And then with nutrition, have any of you ever heard of the MIND diet? So the MIND diet takes the DASH diet for hypertension and the Mediterranean diet and puts the two together, called the MIND diet. And it's really just focused on the importance of having in dark leafy greens, berries, nuts, whole grains, olive oil, and fish, and trying to limit sugar and unhealthy fats. Doesn't say you can't have any at all, but trying to limit those. And so that's what they said. They followed that eating plan, and that proved to help with their cognition as well. And then last but not least, when we talk about cognitive exercise, so how many of you like to play solitaire or Sudoku or some type of game on your phone or a crossword puzzle? Those are all great things for your cognition. It says here that the group that was more structured did computer-based brain training programs 3 times a week for 30 minutes, plus they engaged in regular social activity. So coming out to an event like this tonight is really good for your brain, because it's when we socially isolate ourselves and cut ourselves off from the rest of the world that people sometimes show that cognitive decline. So keep active in your community, coming to events like this, finding volunteer opportunities. Those things are all excellent things to do for your brain. So when we think about those risk factors, we know, like I said, we can't control our age, but we know those actions that we can take to improve our health. The growing evidence keeps showing that healthy living can lower the risk of cognitive decline and possibly dementia. Our brains need to be taken care of at all ages. So it's not even something that you should think of, well, gosh, I don't have to worry about this until I hit 65, or until I retire, or until I'm a certain age. We all should be thinking about the importance of our brain health. It's never too late to make some positive changes. And keep in mind, what's good for your heart is good for your brain when you think about that too. So other things I talked about, just to recap, we've got the 24/7 helpline at 800-272-3900. I've got the magnets if you want to pick one up on your way out. We always offer free education and support for families that are needing it, that are caregivers, those impacted by the disease. We have a trial match program as well that anyone can register for to see how can they help to advance the science, help us get closer to a cure. So lots of resources that we have. And then we have 19 walks that happen across the state of Iowa in September and October of every year. I think the closest one to here would possibly be Panora, I think would be the closest to here that we have. And so it's a great way to see a community of people in purple, to feel like I'm not alone in this, there's other people that understand what I'm going through, and it's a great fundraiser for research. Same along those lines is we have another great activity called Do What You Love to End Alls. If you like to scrapbook or play pickleball or do crossword puzzles or whatever, you can turn anything basically into a fundraiser, that's what it's saying. So when we think about our brain health, I'll leave you with this. Just continue to spread the word. Think about those brain healthy habits. And I have a card at our table as well that you can take one of these with you today to remind you, what are those 10 healthy habits I should focus on for my brain? You can get involved in clinical trials or research, especially if you have that family history or genetic links. You can get involved in volunteering with us as well. Use our helpline when needed. And at the table, I also have 10 warning signs. So if you think, I'm not really sure when I should say something to a friend or family member if I start seeing some memory issues, this kind of helps you it guides you through, okay, I'm seeing, mom's becoming more confused with time or place or current events. Her mood or personality has changed. The first thing I noticed with my mom is that her ability to understand visual images and spatial relationships changed. So with my mom, she made comments that she thought her vision had changed. She goes to the eye doctor. He says, nothing's changed. You don't need new glasses. But he didn't pick up on the fact that her depth perception and her peripheral vision was changing. I picked up on it when I went to visit her, and I saw little scratches and dents and dings on her car, and I would ask her what happened. One time she hit the mailbox, another time she hit a garbage can, and I started putting it together with other things as far as asking the same question over again, repeating herself, et cetera, right? But if you're not sure, what are those 10 warning signs? We also have a flyer at our table for that. And I think that's about it. But if you're someone currently living with dementia or caring for someone, we've got information on that. And last but not least, sign up for our raffle that we have over our table before you leave tonight, because I'm giving away an umbrella and a water bottle. And what's my third item? Well, you'll just have to come over and see and register for it. So I'll just leave it as a mystery because I can't remember. But I'll leave you with that, and please stop by if you have any questions or you'd like to talk to me individually. I've got business cards over there too. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
I'm sure you all are getting very tired now. You've heard from a lot of people, so just quickly we're going to do your community resources from every step, and then we have Shay, come on up, for you guys to just introduce yourself and let you guys in the community know that these guys are available. You have options in the event that you guys need help at home.
Hi, I'm Tyra Stoll. I'll talk without that, but I'm from the Creston area, so I know a lot of you, or not all of you, but we provide home health services, home health care, both skilled, non-skilled, and everybody's provided so much information that I really don't have to repeat. So the one thing that I will say with the Medicare, I know that they said it's really not long-term, We do have some patients with long-term Medicare when they have a catheter, they're homebound, and they need that nursing and aid to help with those bathing services. And then we do utilize a lot of people with the veteran benefits and as well as the long-term care insurance. So depending on your policy and you know what it says. But I we're with every step, and Michelle's over here. She's with the hospice team. And so we provide here in Union County and then the surrounding counties around it. So if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call, or we've got information up here too. So I won't keep you very long because I know it's been a long afternoon and a lot of great information, but I appreciate you letting me be here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michaela Seifert. I do home care. So I am actually private pay. I don't accept Medicare, Medicaid. We service Creston in central Iowa right now. Our purpose is to just kind of keep you guys home. We work a lot with farmers who have worked their entire lives keeping their home and land. Everything's been covered up here. I do have business cards on the table out there. Thank you. Home care is like your I do have CNAs and nurses. We do hold license. We do like activities of daily living. So what we take care of right now is I do have a patient who has stage 4 cancer, and we're teaching her to walk again, working with Unity Point at home with therapy services. And then I have someone who's getting ready to start end of life care, so hospice. The one who spoke earlier, and she's 24 hours a day. So that's what we take care of right now. We can do 24-hour care with a 2-hour minimum. We would not accept anything that wasn't at least 2 hours. Thank you.
I think she asked what your rates are. I didn't hear you ask what your rates are. My rates? Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Did you ask what my rates were? So because everyone is certified, we do charge $40 Monday through Friday an hour, and then the weekends we charge $50 an hour. But we can do all hours, so yeah.
All right. I would ask you all, okay, I'm just going to introduce you guys quick. I know that he's going to. Kevin and Tammy Dill are a part of Dementia Friendly Iowa. He was helping support Dementia Iowa, one of the founders, and his wife has a lot of experience taking care of folks that are, or her husband, that has dementia, and she has become a full-time caregiver. So I just wanted to introduce them and say hello. Okay, I would ask you if you all have questions, but I know the answer a lot. I have a lot of questions, and I know this. So I think, unless you guys have burning questions, I can bring someone back over. But if you guys just have a question that you would like to contact someone, grab their information, reach out to them. They can help. I think everybody's still over there besides the insurance or the Medicare guys. So please let them know if you need anything or grab their contact information. Other than that, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you for being a good audience. And it was great to be here.